They had said it to her with a kindness that still cut. "You're wonderful, Clara, truly, but I think I'm looking for someone younger." Or they said it with a shrug and a joke, as if time were a stain she should have scrubbed away before arriving. Or they didn't say it at all, letting the silence stretch after the third date, the unanswered messages doing the work words didn't have the courage to do. At 46, Clara had learned to read the signs quickly. The way a man's eyes flicked toward the door when she mentioned her age. The polite smile that followed compliments about her wisdom, her stability, her calm. As if those were apologies disguised as praise. She had stopped dating 6 months earlier, after a man 10 years her senior told her he wanted children, someday. She had walked home that night with her coat unbuttoned in the cold, laughing out loud at the absurdity of it, then crying in her kitchen with her forehead pressed to the refrigerator door. So when she inherited her aunt's ranch in the high plains of eastern Colorado, it felt less like an opportunity and more like a place to disappear. The land was wide and dry and honest. No one asked how old you were when you stood under that sky. The ranch house was weathered, with peeling paint and a porch that sagged in the middle, but it smelled like sage and sun-baked wood. Clara rolled up her sleeves and learned how to fix fences, how to wake with the sun, how to listen to the wind and know when a storm was coming. The isolation was both a balm and a challenge. Some nights the quiet pressed in on her chest until she had to step outside just to breathe. Other nights she slept like a child, exhausted in a way that felt earned. She met Eli Mercer the day her truck wouldn't start. She was stranded at the edge of her property, hood up, phone with no signal, dust clinging to her boots and sweat trickling down her spine. She had just kicked the tire in frustration when an old pickup rattled to a stop beside her. He didn't smile when he got out. His face looked carved by weather and disappointment, his beard more salt than pepper. He walked with a limp that suggested an old injury, one he had learned to live with but not forget. "You all right?" he asked, voice rough but not unkind. "Define all right," Clara said, surprising herself with the humor in her tone. He studied the engine for a moment, then nodded toward the battery. "I've got jumper cables." As they waited for the engine to turn over, he leaned against his truck, arms crossed, eyes on the horizon. There was something closed about him, as if he had learned the cost of openness and decided it was too high. "Eli Mercer," he said finally. "My place borders yours to the west. Clara Hensley. I'm new. Or, newly old, depending on who you ask." He glanced at her then, a quick look that held curiosity rather than judgment. "Land doesn't care how old you are," he said. "Just whether you show up." The engine coughed to life. Relief flooded her. She thanked him, expecting that to be the end of it. But 2 days later, he stopped by with a toolbox and fixed the sagging porch without asking. The week after that, he showed her how to spot a sick calf, how to tell when a fence was about to give. He didn't talk much about himself, but he listened when she spoke, really listened, in a way that made her words feel solid and worth saying. Eli had been married once. She learned that from a neighbor, not from him. His wife had died in a car accident 8 years earlier. No children. After that, he had withdrawn, keeping his world small and manageable. "Broken," the neighbor had said, with a shake of her head. Not unkindly, but with finality. Clara recognized the look in his eyes, the one she saw in her own reflection some mornings. The look of someone who had wanted something deeply and learned to live without it. Their friendship grew quietly, rooted in shared labor and in spoken understanding. He brought her fresh eggs, she baked bread and left it on his porch. Sometimes they sat on the tailgate of his truck at dusk, watching the sky bruise into purple and gold. One evening, after a long day mending fences, Clara mentioned a date she had gone on years earlier, the way the man had laughed when she told him her age. "You know what he said?" she asked, staring at the horizon. "He said, you don't look it. Like it was a gift." Eli was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Some people measure worth in numbers because they're afraid of anything they can't count." She looked at him then, really looked. The lines around his eyes, the scar on his jaw, the weariness that lived just beneath his steadiness. "How old are you?" she asked. 53, he said. No apology in his voice. No pride either. She felt something shift inside her, subtle but profound. Not hope exactly, but recognition. The realization that she was falling for him came slowly, then all at once. It was in the way she noticed the sound of his truck before she saw it, the way her body relaxed when he was near. It was in the ache she felt when he pulled away emotionally, the wall that rose whenever things drifted too close. One night, after a storm knocked out power across the valley, Eli showed up at her door with lanterns and a bottle of whiskey. They sat at her kitchen table, shadows dancing on the walls, rain pounding the roof. "I don't do this," he said abruptly. "This, closeness. I know," she said gently. "I'm not looking for anything," he continued. "I'm not good at it anymore." She met his gaze, steady and unflinching. "I'm not asking you to be anything you're not." Something in her calm seemed to undo him. His shoulders slumped, just a little. "You deserve more than someone like me," he said. She laughed softly, not out of humor but disbelief. "Every man I've dated has told me some version of that," she said. Usually before leaving. He looked at her then, really looked, as if seeing her not as a set of expectations but as a whole, complicated person. "You're not too old," he said quietly. "You're solid. You know who you are." The words hit her harder than any compliment ever had. Tears sprang to her eyes, surprising them both. They didn't kiss that night. He left after another hour of talking, the space between them charged and fragile. The next weeks were a test of patience and courage. Eli pulled back, then returned. Clara wrestled with her own fears, the old voice that warned her not to hope too much, not to risk another quiet heartbreak. The twist came in the form of a letter. Eli found it in a box while cleaning out his barn, a letter his wife had written weeks before she died. He came to Clara's door with it in his hand, eyes hollow. "She wrote that she was afraid I'd disappear if she was gone," he said. "That I'd turn into a man who only half lived." His voice broke. Clara reached for him, instinctively, and this time he didn't pull away. He folded into her, grief shaking his frame, and she held him, feeling the weight of years of silence finally loosen. "I don't want to be that man anymore," he whispered. She rested her forehead against his. "Then don't be." The first kiss came later, tentative and reverent, a question rather than a claim. It was enough to make her knees weak, enough to make the world feel suddenly possible again. They faced judgment, of course. A neighbor joked about cradle robbing, then realized too late he had the ages backward. Another asked Eli if he wasn't worried about slowing down. Eli only smiled. "I've been slow for a long time," he said. "She makes me want to move again." Clara had her own reckoning. The fear that it was too late, that happiness was something meant for younger women, crept in at odd moments. But each time, Eli met her where she was, not trying to fix her doubts, just standing beside her. The ranch changed with them. Repairs were made. Laughter found its way into the quiet spaces. They argued sometimes, real arguments born of two people set in their ways, but they learned how to listen, how to apologize. The ending didn't come in a grand gesture or a dramatic declaration. It came one evening as they sat on the porch, older bones tired but content, watching the sun sink into the land they had built together. Eli took her hand, his grip warm and sure. "I spent years thinking I was broken beyond repair," he said. "Then you showed up and didn't try to fix me. You just saw me." Clara squeezed his hand, tears in her eyes. "I spent years thinking I was too late," she said. "Too old for the life I wanted." He turned to her fully, eyes fierce and tender. "You're perfect for me," he said. "Exactly as you are. Exactly when you are." Under the vast, forgiving sky, Clara felt something settle into place. Not the end of longing, but the fulfillment of it. Not youth reclaimed, but something deeper and more enduring. She had not missed her chance. She had arrived precisely when she was meant to.